correctly. So I'm going to introduce now our speakers. First off, and I don't know who's going first, so my apologies here, but first off, I'm going to introduce Kevin Switzer. Kevin is an Ingram Micro Cisco technology consultant that specializes in assisting with design and demonstration of Cisco technologies to help clients use technology to solve various business problems and needs. Kevin is also an avid threat researcher, which I'm sure is keeping you very, very busy today, as well as a member of the FBI Infraguard, Partnership for Protection. And in his spare time, likes to jog, play euchre, and cook with friends in both a pre and post-COVID environment. And then we have David Bouchard, as currently based in Austin, Texas, much warmer than all of us right now. David is a cybersecurity specialist at Cisco Duo, where he helps companies protect their users' devices and data. Outside of work, he's been spending most of his time cooking, biking, and hanging out with his wife and 2.5-year-old. We have a number of other individuals as well from the Cisco and Ingram Micro side. So as Mike said, please make sure you fill out your surveys and please make sure you ask plenty of questions. So guys, I will hand it over to you.
Perfect. And I'll step in for just a moment. I'm crashing the event. I'm very, very excited to be a part of this. My name is Lauren Kanjar. I am an account manager on the Cisco side that has partnered very closely with Entree over the last few years. I'm so lucky that I get invited to so many events every year and that we have the opportunity to speak. So some of your faces, it's really great to see you guys. And for who I don't know, it's wonderful to meet you. And I'm very excited to have the opportunity to be a part of this. I did want to let everybody know, please feel free to ask questions. Please put them in the chat box. We will make time at the end for us to answer those questions. I'll make sure I'm monitoring them. And then also, if there's anything that we may not have time for, the great news is I can work with Kathy to get all of that answered for you guys. So just wanted to introduce myself. I'm very excited to be a part of this again, and I'll go ahead and hand it off to Kevin. So thank you guys.
All right, thanks so much, Lauren and Chris. And as Chris mentioned, my name is Kevin Switzer. I'm a technology consultant. I'm actually with Ingram Micro, but we're obviously a very large partner working directly with Cisco and Entree. And my role is entirely focused on Cisco, and been with Ingram on the Cisco team for about 14 years now. And for about the last 8 years, been entirely focused on Cisco security ever since Cisco decided that they were going to make security one of their main architecture focuses and investment areas. So just to give you a quick idea of what I would like to cover with you guys this afternoon. Very important. A good portion of my job is actually, like mentioned, doing threat research and really more focusing on what are the attackers actually doing as far as their strategy goes, especially with how much has changed in the last year and adjustment to focuses, so that we can then properly position different security solutions to mitigate those. Just a brief mention of Cisco's position in the security market, mention Cisco Talus, and then I want to dive into Cisco Secure Firewall, which was formerly known as FirePower. Cisco's kind of in the midst of a name change to make things, quote, simpler. So if you're familiar with FirePower, we are now calling that Cisco Secure Firewall. So we'll dive into that. And after which, David's going to give you a run through with Cisco Duo. So to kick us off, let's go over some general cybersecurity trends. And I really wanted to focus on things specifically to the year 2020 because so much changed last year. Since the pandemic began, and we all did expect an increase, and there always, year over year, there always is an increase in different types of crimes and overall cybercrime. But the FBI reported a 300% increase in reported cybercrimes, and that is the specific number of cybercrimes in the United States. Like I said, we all expected an increase, but I don't think any one of us expected that many increased incidences. And in the beginning, the attackers really did say, all right, we're going to lay off the healthcare industry because it was always such a heavy focus. They knew if they attacked the hospital and locked it down with ransomware, they were very likely to get paid. In the beginning, they said, yeah, you know what, we're actually going to back off attacking hospitals with ransomware because they're overwhelmed as it is, and obviously a lot of lives at stake. And that was partially because compassion, I would say, was some of it, but also likely is that they knew that they took down a hospital, that would absolutely gain the attention of the FBI and Secret Service, and they would absolutely go after them. So there was a little bit more of a fear factor on their end. But however, these attackers did not say, well, we're just going to, you know, sit back and give up and not do anything. So there was a major shift to the remote workforce. It is considered that in 2020, and this is up from about 88%, 95% of cybersecurity breaches were caused by human error. So either somebody did something they were not supposed to do, and in most cases, this was click on a phishing email or connect to their VPN or something like that, or somebody did not do something they were supposed to do. And this is more geared towards the actual security administrators for a network. Obviously, a lot of shifting going on. They were very busy, very overwhelmed. So very easy for them to miss one little thing that could have catastrophic effects. And I'm sorry, that should say 2020. So in 2020, 94% of malware was delivered by email. This is, again, up about 9% from the previous year. So this is even more is coming through by email versus directed attacks, or you know, the one-off type of things where they would drop a USB drive in the parking lot, have somebody plug it in. Much more focused on email. 47% of employees cited distraction as the reason for falling for a phishing scam while working from home. And we refer to this as the distraction factor. And the top method right now is news clickbait. And let me come back to that. So the distraction factor, what we're talking about here is when you are, you know, in an office, you're working, you're at your desk, you probably have two good-sized screens connected to your laptop or PC or whatever, and very good chance the user has actually been put through some type of training. Hey, this is what a phishing email looks like. If you get this, something like this, this is the policy. Send this to your security team, or click on a button right in Outlook and you know, have it taken care of. Don't look at it. That is a reasonable expectation of just about any employee working in an office. But now that we're mostly working from home, there are various types of distractions. Probably just about everybody has some type with working from home. And then also people who are not necessarily used to having work access on their mobile phones or tablets or whatever it may be. And also, you know, it could be they're not even at home. They are taking their daily walk in the park or whatever it may be, and or email comes into their phone, and they're just not having that mindset that they would at their desk in the office and paying attention as closely as they normally would. So the top method for clickbait in phishing emails is some type of news headline with everything that's going on. It was just irresistible to not click on, oh, geez, you know what? If I was not taking a jog, I may have paid attention a little bit more than I did just now when I clicked on it anyway. The second top method of phishing emails is business email compromise. And what this refers to is an attacker who specializes in getting people to click through email. And yes, these attackers actually do work through verticals as well. So there is actually a type of attacker who specializes in getting someone to click on an email. In another vertical, there's another group that is just very good at writing and pushing malware. Then they push that over to the vertical of people who are experts at ransomware. And all this is taking place on the back end, on the dark web, where they're selling each other the information that they're getting in. So back to this business email compromise, or BEC, as it's very commonly referred to. This vertical hacker, what they're going to do is they're going to go on typically LinkedIn or something similar. They're going to go find the profile of a vice president or a CEO or C-level person for a particular business. And very often, their email address or contact information may be listed right in there. So they're going to take the step of emailing that VP or C-level person and hopefully get a response of some kind back from them, or even typically an auto response or a response from an admin would be enough, because then they're actually going to have the format of that email and know exactly what it looks like. They're also going to look at the domain of that company, and they're going to slightly change it and register their own so that they can send out an email. Now they know what the format is. They're also going to probably go back to LinkedIn, and they're going to check out, who might work under that person, and they'll probably pick, a whole bunch of them and send out a whole bunch of these emails and see if anybody responds. And they're hoping that, hey, I've actually made them think that I was that person, So John.Kelly versus John.Kelly, only the Kelly is spelled slightly different. And a person who works with this and normally gets emails from this person and authorizes payments or whatever, very easily could be spoofed by something like this if they're not really dialed in and focused and paying attention. 80% of hacking-related breaches this past year leveraged compromised passwords. So the first thing that all these different types of attacks, of the malware and everything like this, what they're really trying to get their hands on is your username and your password. They want your credentials. If they can obtain that, so you're going to click on an email, and it's going to take you to a page that looks very similar to one you're seeing and you normally logged into. You put your username and password, then they have it. They want that so that they then can go to the dark web. They can sell those login credentials to the next vertical over, which is going to be, you know, the person who is an expert in malware or something like that. So that is what they're really actually after, is that login credentials. 86% of breaches were financially motivated and only 10% motivated by espionage. So the vast majority of these, they're simply trying to get paid, whereas the very small minority, you know, is it somebody who got laid off and just decided to sell their login credentials on the dark web or something like that. And the average ransomware payments rose 33%, which is a little bit higher than normal last year, up to $111,000. And also, what we have seen over and over again in the past year is a double dip. What these attackers are now doing is not only are they getting companies to pay their ransomware, but they're also taking a copy of all of the data before they encrypt it. They are then selling it to competitors or whoever may want to buy that information as well. So they're actually getting paid twice on the same breach. So even if you pay your ransom, you're not necessarily out of the woods. Now you may ask, you know, why Cisco? You know, what makes them, or who says that they are actually a top security company? And there's a lot of different third-party reports out there. There's NSS Labs, there's Gartner's, and if you ask me, I can probably provide you a list of 20 of them. And I absolutely suggest that you take a look at those types of reports, because it's not being pushed on by a vendor or anybody else. And this is completely third party. They do not take advertisement from any of these vendors, that kind of thing. So it's a true report. And I just picked one. I picked Forrester because I needed to pick one. I think they're a pretty good one. I've been talking about, everyone knows about Gartner, so I just want to pick one that's a little bit different. But obviously, they focus very heavily in security. They actually rate on 34 different criteria that Cisco happens to participate in. There is a ton of different categories, and I really wonder sometimes where they come up with these, because some of them are really different, but I'm not here to judge that. Anyway, Cisco qualified to participate in 34 criteria, and Forrester said that they received a 5 out of 5 in 20 of those categories. Probably the most important one: zero trust, cloud delivered components, workload security, which also ties into microsegmentation, and also firewall as a service. Forrester describes Cisco as a well-suited to meet diverse requirements of large enterprise buyers. Perfect score on that. Of course, you know, Cisco loves to compete with Palo Alto, so they had to throw in that Palo Alto scored slightly below them in this category. Leading with the platform strategy, Cisco is ranked a leader in strategy with a perfect 5 out of 5 for product vision. So looking forward, you know, Cisco always aims to maintain being number 1 or number 2 in the industry going forward. They are investing just a ton of money in research and development, and also in company acquisitions, and also just revamping their products, making them better, even if it's not new hardware that they're coming up, but even through software updates, improving performance, things like that. So looking forward, Cisco is going to continue to keep this as a top focus. Cisco earned the highest possible rating for threat intelligence, demonstrating the power of Cisco Talos across the secure platform. And we should just dive right in this, because this is such a huge part of what makes Cisco security as strong as they are, and effective. That's a keyword, security effectiveness, when looking at any type of vendor. So Cisco Talos is the back-end threat research team at Cisco that does all the security research. And for once, we don't have an acronym here. Talos was the Greek god of defense, So that's what they named their group after. It does not stand for anything, so don't have to overanalyze that. But the job is really protecting everything, and they break down into various divisions. And just to give you a very quick idea of what these are: threat intelligence and interdiction. This group is focused on actually getting in the way of any type of active threat that is actually going on by surveilling active threat campaigns for intelligence and working with the different incident response groups, whether it be their own or third party. Detection research focuses on constantly improving methods for identifying new threats and in specific detection methods. The engineering and development is about creating more powerful tools and find their way back into Cisco Security Solutions for the open source community. If you've ever run across the group called Snort, that's really what that is referring to. If you're not familiar with Snort, take a quick look it up. It is a really great community where people can really just discuss, and it's really focused on intrusion prevention type systems, but that is an open source type of community. Vulnerability and research and discovery is on the lookout for weaknesses, either in Cisco software or Microsoft software, or whoever it may be, and also in hardware, and pretty much bring that to light to the rest of the research and development team to figure out fixes and if it's really a problem or not. And the best security research is not done in a vacuum. The community effort really helps build partnerships with other threat researchers and customers and security organizations outside of Cisco. So I was very surprised to find out that this Talos team works with a lot of other vendors, other back-end research team. They share a lot of information with each other, which I would figure is, kind of cross competition, but it's not about that at all. It's what's really important is how each vendor is able to react and position their solutions to block these attacks. And you just can't get ahead of Cisco in this area. There are about 250 plus full-time research individuals, and they are strategically located in offices across the globe. So they are operational 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They're always out there paying attention. And the way this whole team works along with Cisco's systems, it's basically a giant network as a sensor. So every time any Cisco security product out there sees a threat attempting to come in and blocks it, it's going to feed that feedback back to Cisco Talos, say, yes, this came up, we blocked it, no problem. And then likewise, when, let's say, a file comes into a Cisco firewall, we check it, it seems good, we let it in, and then all of a sudden it starts to do something malicious. Well, that's also going to get fed back to Talos as well. It's going to send the file the full information, and it's going to really pick that file apart. They're going to discover exactly what it's trying to do. It's going to name all the indications of compromise, so whatever command and control servers, IP addresses, whatever it may be that they're trying to talk to, and then they're going to push that information down to every other Cisco security product out there. And automatically everyone's going to be up to date. It's going to be blocked. We're all going to be good. And Cisco Talos's goal is to block at least 99% of the threats out there, allowing for the security operations teams to focus on the 1% that may get through and need immediate attention. Any questions on Talos or the general threats before I jump into the firewall?
We should be good for now.
All right. So let's talk about Cisco Secure Firewall. And let me start out by saying that at one point in time, this was known as its own company called SourceFire. They were considered number one, SourceFire, as in the IPS and also the malware protection categories of security. Cisco at that time had their own IPS solution. They did not have a malware category. And their technology just couldn't come close to how effective SourceFire was. So Cisco acquired them and rebranded them as Cisco FirePower. And this FirePower is still current, but in general, we're supposed to refer to this as Cisco Secure Firewall. So terms are very interchangeable. And what we hear from just about every survey that we ever get on firewalls, what do the customers actually want? This is what we are told, and we'll go into how we really provide this with Cisco Secure Firewall. So stopping more threats, it makes sense. That's what we want. Prioritizing threats, of course, in recent times with the next generation firewalls, yeah, we can pick up every little thing that could be a problem, but now I'm overwhelmed with all these logs I need to sift through. And by the time I get through half of them, I find out that, hey, these first 50 were not all that important, but this number 51, that could have been really bad. I wish I could have skipped the first 50 and just focused on this flat one. So we need prioritization of these alerts on the threats. Obviously, detect things earlier so that we're able to act faster on these. Oops, too far. So I want to start out with this by saying that FirePower is licensed with 4 very specific features. Application visibility and control. It does exactly what that says, application visibility and control. So we were looking at very specific or cloud-based or in-house applications. The last I checked inside of FirePower, there's probably close to 2,000 named applications in categories. So for example, if I wanted to, I could say on my network, I'm not going to allow any type of social networking whatsoever. So instantly that shuts off all of Facebook, Twitter, and whatever else that may be being used. But also, we do have the ability to allow that and control it. So for example, I could say I'm going to allow Facebook, but I'm going to block chat and I'm going to block video, and not just for social media, but across a wide variety of file sharing we can block, things like that. The next one being URL filtering. This is going to give you, again, category-based, whitelist, blacklist, as well as reputation-based URLs. So with that, I'm able to have full control over all of my web content. I want to say URL filtering is a license with a cost associated to it, as does next generation IPS and as well as AMP. Those all have a cost associated with the subscriptions. However, once you buy any one of those, AVC is going to be automatically included with that. And next I want to dive a little bit deeper into Cisco's next generation IPS. And if you happen to have worked with Cisco for long enough, you remember the AIP modules that you could install into a Generation 1 Cisco ASA, and how that IPS worked is the admin for that system had to log into a Cisco website each and every day and download a file that had the updated IPS signatures. And you typically had a person who specialized just in that technology, because they had to go through that, and the list was so large that you couldn't include it all, otherwise it would bog down the whole firewall. So you had to remove quite a bit of that. Thank goodness we no longer have to worry about that whatsoever. This is next generation IPS. Those updates are happening automatically. Again, powered by Snort, which is that open source community who discuss and really work together on IPS signatures, that has a tie directly through Talus. Talus will then push down the FirePower recommended rules configuration. So these are, what they are suggesting you should allow in your IPS. And for the most part, you're going to just say, I accept the recommendations, and let's move forward. Also, the other major impact or the next major feature to next generation IPS are these impact IPS flags. So ranked 0 through 1. 0 is really nothing to really worry about, but when we get into 3 and 4, that's something that if it is tied to something more important down the line, then we'll kind of pay attention to it. But once we get into impact flag level 2, that's something that really could be a problem, and I need to start looking into this very soon. If I actually have a red impact flag pop up on my admin screen, we know that this is extremely bad and we need to respond immediately. So like I said, one of those major problems is that I get so many alerts, I don't know what to pay attention to first. This is what's going to fix that problem. And anytime a flag number 1 pops up, I know I need to act upon that immediately, and later on I can possibly check into the 2, 3, 4s and 0s. The next major feature is going to be Cisco AMP, and this is AMP for Networks, stands for Advanced Malware Protection. And the way this operates is anytime a file is coming through the network, through the firewall, it's going to take that, it's going to run a SHA-256 algorithm against it, and that's going to spit out basically its digital fingerprint. Now, the AMP system running on this firewall has a list provided by Talus of all known bad files and correlate that with their digital fingerprint. So it's going to check all those digital fingerprints and say, hey, do I know this file as a bad file? It's going to say no. In a lot of those cases, it's just going to allow the file to come through. But it could be something, an indication of compromise on that file. It's extra large. It actually has XML embedded in it. And in those cases, we're actually going to do a sandbox, and we're going to upload it to the actual sandbox cloud. We're going to run some checks on it and determine if it's malicious or not. And we're going to allow it to come back down. The score says, nope, it really didn't seem malicious, so we'll go ahead and allow it in. And right about here is where typically most malware control solutions will stop. That's about the end of their features. And every one of them does the things I just mentioned. But with Cisco AMP, we're going to also have retrospection detection and file trajectory. So for example, that file that we just scanned, we thought was safe, we allowed it to come in. It's actually keeping a map of that file trajectory. So-and-so user brought this in, and it sat on his machine at this time, and then it was shared to these other 3 users on our system. And then, holy cow, a little bit down the timeline, this file did, for example, a polymorphism. It changed itself from a .doc to a .exe. Now, that obviously is a major indication of compromise, that it is a threat. And, oh, by the way, that file is trying to speak out to an IP address that we know is a command and control server. So the good news is, even though we have a bad file on our system, we're able to stop it in its tracks. And we basically have a checklist of what we have to do to remediate this threat. We know which machines it's been on, what users have interacted with, and what IP addresses it is trying to speak out to. So we simply take those machines offline. We're going to wipe them clean, get that file off of it, and we're going to block the IP addresses that it was trying to talk out to. So now we have full remediation control over our file system. And again, this is Cisco AMP for networks. Another major piece to this solution, it's going to provide us with a list of all the IOCs that could be going on, indications of compromise. So it's going to tell us the category, if it's an exploit kit, if it's an impact number 1 coming over from IPS, if it's malware detected coming over from AMP, is it a malware execution, dropper infection? Where was it first seen? Where was it last seen? So we have a time frame. Okay, how long has this been here? And how deep do we actually have to go to mitigate this? So another great piece of information is this indication of compromise. And what I really also want you to make sure you understand, especially in this day and age with so many of us working from home or remotely, is that you could have all of these great security features back at the office, great, but unless you're connected through the VPN, now that could be a remote office site to site, or most importantly, you're probably going to be using Cisco AnyConnect VPN, which can be IPsec or SSL. This VPN must be established in order for the remote user to be getting all of these great security features. So make sure you're also utilizing that and hopefully forcing connection upon boot up. And just, I won't have to go too deep into this, speeds and feeds, nobody wants to hear that, but just wanted to give you a general idea that Cisco's firewall portfolio is pretty expansive. Probably the most popular one is going to be the FirePower 1010, direct replacement for Cisco's ASA 5505 or 5506. It's a desktop type model. If you need something with a bit more throughput, we'd be looking at a FirePower 1120, 1140, 1150, somewhere in there, which would be a good upgrade from the ASA 5508 or 16. And if you need more throughput than a gig, Cisco certainly has additional models. You can go nuts and even get into the 30 gigabits of throughput if you need be. So just wanted to point out Cisco's hardware models, quite a vast amount of options and can fit any of your throughput needs. And also want to remind you that, Cisco's investment in these is ongoing. So just this past year, simply through firmware updates, they were able to boost the overall firewall throughput a little over 3 times, and up also 5 times the boost of VPN throughput. Obviously, that was a huge focus this year, was increasing that VPN throughput with so many additional people utilizing that. Double the amount of connections per second and improved encrypted traffic through the firewall. Now, the manageability, want to make sure you know that there's at least 2 options you have when it comes to managing this solution. There's a deep dive option, which is going to be FirePower Management Center. And then there's what I would refer to as the easy button, the on-device Cisco FirePower Device Manager. Next slide. So FMC, FirePower Management Center. This is the deep dive. I want to know everything and have every single bell and whistle available with this solution type of management. This can be deployed as a virtual manager or as a physical appliance. It can manage as low as 1 device and as high as, I want to say, 5,000 devices, should you actually have the need for that many. But most typically, you're going to have a pair of firewalls in place, and it was active failover. And you can buy a virtual license for 2 devices, and that's definitely the most common. But you have the ability to manage across many sites if you need that. You have the ability to control, access, and set all policies across all of the systems. Very deep dive reporting capabilities, so you have the ability to investigate incidences as far as you may want to go. Multi-domain management, role-based access control, high availability, and et cetera. With the FirePower Device Manager, and also let me back up one step with the FMC, this is a complicated enough management and reporting solution that you need to have a person who is dedicated to security and really understands this and has time to dive into it and run it. This is not going to be a jack of all trades type of network admin who's going to be able to operate this system. And that's where FirePower Device Management comes in. You're going to access through the browser, but it is actually hosted directly on the firewall itself. It's very easy to set up. It does give you access to controlling basic setup policies. It does have automated configuration capabilities, enhanced control, high availability, NAT routing, and all those types of things, and of course, VPN support. But if you do have a jack of all trades, you do not need to dive into so much of the reporting. This would be the type of management solution you would be more looking for. Are there any questions on anything I have gone over before I turn this over to David to jump into Cisco Duo?
So far, the chat box is good to go at this time. No questions, but team, definitely feel free to do so. And yep, we should be good to go to David.
All right.
You're muted, Dave, just to let you know.
There we go. How's that screen visible? Okay. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'll just going to jump right in here. I'm Dave from Duo, and really what we're looking to kind of quickly go over here, focusing on Cisco Duo, is just a couple things to discuss. Reducing that attack surface. How can we address this the threats quickly and easily? What is Cisco Duo, and what that end user experience might be, and how can I learn about doing more? So, just a quick overview here. Not getting into the weeds too much. We can jump right in. Mirroring what Kevin was mentioning about on that first slide or so, this is coming from the Verizon data breach report. So this is pretty consistent over the past several years, where it's in the range of 80% of breaches coming from weak or stolen passwords, and 70% coming from compromised devices. So I think this is still, this is the low-hanging fruit. This is what bad actors are targeting, and so that's where Duo came in to really focus our efforts. And so our approach here, as we're looking at Zero Trust, is to focus on 3 elements really: the user's the devices and the application access. And everything that we do from a feature and product standpoint is really all kind of going against these three pillars. And just to give you a quick taste of some of those risks that we're able to help mitigate, it could be out-of-date devices, lost or stolen devices, malware, looking at exposure to personal information, compliance, regulation, lack of resources. These are some of the things that we're able to help you with on the Duo side, and all of those things are things that we've dealt with for years and years. And just to call out, Duo or COVID rather has exacerbated these risks and increased the scale. So these are conversations I've had in the past year that are just as timely now as they were a couple of years ago, but just much more greater in scope. Instead of a handful of people needing VPN, it could be your entire workforce, or industries that may never have had to really worry about folks working from home, now they do. So just these are things that you're probably experiencing now, and definitely things that Duo can help you with. Both because of the change to work from home, but also just things in the past several years as well. And combining that with security and compliance regulations and requirements, whether it's PCI or NIST or HIPAA, again, these are things that are elements that Duo has been able to help customers with for the past several years, but they're taking on a new and probably increased focus now because of the past year, the number of email fraud, the amount of fraud, just generally speaking. I think we've seen a big increase in requirements based on cybersecurity insurance. So there's a lot of reasons that these types of requirements are still going to be very top of mind for you. And again, things that we have worked with for years, and things that we can continue to help you solve. So at the high level, here's what we do, kind of going through a quick 4-step process. So number one, we're going to verify the identity of your users. Number two, we're going to verify the health of the devices that they're using to access from. And number three, we're going to control which users and devices gain access to certain applications. And then finally, we're hoping to protect all of your applications all the time. And so the way that we do it, number one, verifying the users with MFA. Number two, that health check is being done through, constant or checking the devices every time that they're being accessed and used. We're going to use access control policies to help control the users and devices in terms of what they're able to access, and then making it easy and seamless for all applications, really kind of looking at that zero trust architecture, using our single sign-on, just making it easy for you to protect everything so that there's no gaps in your security. So I'm going to go through just a couple slides here, one for each of those pillars, and just give you a little bit of background. So, first off, verifying the identity of the users with MFA. It's something that we've, seen with something and something you have being used to kind of validate that multi-factor. I think increasingly we're going to see something that you are. So fingerprints, facial recognition. I know definitely from Duo, you're going to see a lot more coming out this year around passwordless. So if that's a type of project that you can see on the horizon, definitely keep a lookout for things from us here. And really just making sure that you're using that username and password, even if you have that very complex password in use. Adding that second factor, whether it's your phone, whether it's a fingerprint, definitely something that we want to make sure is in use. And so another thing to note here is that there are a lot of traditional MFA offerings. Maybe you have it built into an application or two, which is great. I think any MFA is better than no MFA. That's for sure. But just keep in mind that some of those may be poorly deployed, or they can't support all applications. There could be some security gaps that are exposed. Maybe they only work with a one-time password or a token, so it's not the best user experience, and it may not be the safest if it's only an SMS coming through. Case in point, that could be susceptible to a man-in-the-middle attack with some SIM swapping, and there maybe is no consistency across applications. So you may have an app here, a phone call there, just not a great user experience. So I think these are things that Duo tries to help solve. So keeping it easy. There's just a one-tap authentication. It's very quick to deploy. You could easily deploy to 1,000 of your users by next week. It's a simple enrollment process, so it's not a huge chore for your team to enroll. We're very agnostic. We work with all different types of companies, though we are part of Cisco. If you're, if you have a Palo Alto, if you're a Palo Alto customer, we can help protect that. So we try to be very agnostic. We have named integrations as well as generic protocols. So trying to, again, just try to protect all of the applications that you might be using, keeping it consistent for the end users, easy to manage, very customizable, which I can jump into in a moment here. And there's really not any limitation. So you're going to be protecting the user. And after that, it's essentially unlimited in terms of the number of applications that you can deploy, number of policies. And we just have a really great high NPS score. So people do like working with Duo. I think they have good experience, and it kind of shows through how they're rating us. Number two, verifying the health of the devices. So with the device checks, we're checking the device every authentication attempt, whether it's a corporate managed device or it's a personal device. So you're going to see the full landscape of what is trying to access your different applications. We're getting the checks on all the devices, so that initial laptop as well as that second factor cell phone that might be used. You're getting all of that, and there's no agent to deploy. So we do have the application, but it's not kind of a tried and true agent where you might have some big brother concerns, or maybe people pushing back on using a personal device for work purposes without a stipend of some sort. So those are some things to consider that we can certainly help you with. And kind of giving you a sense of what we can look at. Operating system, system passwords, are they set? Is firewall enabled? Browser, screen lock, those things up to date and in use. So there's a lot that we can give you, and making it very easy to manage all of that too. Number three here, control which users and devices gain access. So once you have the user protected and checking that device, you can also kind of segment your users a little bit more. So you can have a layered policy that's applied to everyone. You could have it just specific to one individual user, one application, or maybe a group of users. So one office or one department having more strict requirements than another. You can have blocking or remediation prompts that can be configured to a whole host of different criteria, and you can have a good deal of consistency across all of your users and devices, so that you can say with certainty, everyone that's accessing this application has the most up-to-date OS. And as a very timely example, we just received notification internally that starting tomorrow, all devices on OS are needing to be updated to 14.4 because of some vulnerabilities that are being exploited in the wild. So, you're able to say at such and such a date, if you do not update your OS, then you'll be blocked because there are vulnerabilities inherent in your previous, older operating system version. So that's something that we're doing now internally, something that you may want to look at. Those are rare that we have a strict cutoff like that, but that's one that we have now. So just kind of giving you a case in point of how we use our own policies internally too. And so just to quickly kind of show you three quick examples, as I mentioned, you're getting the information across your corporate devices as well as personal devices. And so this is just a way that if you're not able to directly manage all those devices, you can still verify with access policy. So as an example, you're able to say you have your laptop that's able to access a certain number of applications, but that person's personal phone cannot access those if it's out of date. Another way that you're using Duo could be where your vendor could, or maybe a temporary worker, auditor, what have you, maybe they can access a select few applications on their personal devices, but not all applications. So that's a way that you can kind of limit that attack surface again. And another example here is that you can say your corporate device or the corporate laptop is able to access things. You can use your personal phone, but you can't use your personal laptop. So just a quick example of how you can kind of customize some policies to what might be best for your particular environment. And again, there's a lot more that we can go into, but just a quick kind of snapshot here. And then finally here, protecting all applications. So just to give you a sense of the things that we can work with, we have an API, we have a web SDK, we have a lot of named integrations with cloud applications, with on-prem applications. We can use Unix, Linux, SAML 2.0, Radius, LDAP. We just try to be as agnostic as possible because we want everything to be protected and have that same user experience, so that there's not that one outlier, which could be where someone focuses their effort on an attack, and we certainly don't want that. So again, just trying to be very agnostic. We have our SSO that can be used so that it's included in all of our additions, so that you can use it without causing too much friction on your end users, while still making sure that everything is protected. And so here, I'm just going to quickly, looking at the time here, we'll go through what the end user experience is. So if you're using Outlook, we have your main Active Directory credentials, for example. We're going to put those in. We hit push. You get a notification on your phone. We approve it, and we're in. So really, a couple seconds, 2 or 3 clicks, and you're in. So it's not a huge disruption to your end user's day, and you can kind of rest assured that their devices and MFA are kind of checked off. And then finally here, just to close it out, we have 3 main Duo editions: MFA, Access, and Beyond. They each build upon each other. We can go into a lot more detail and nuance if you'd like, but as a quick snapshot, this is a good kind of matrix showing you what the differences are. And I can tell you that it's easy to use and it works great. That's the feedback I get from a lot of my customers, but we do have a trial. So if you want to see it in your own environment, visit duo.com. You can set up a trial, and you can work with me or any of the Duo reps to kind of walk you through any questions and really show you this in a little bit more detail. But we want you to see it is as easy to use and set up and manage as I'm saying it is. So definitely check out our site. All the documentation is public. Everything is very transparent, so you can kind of see what you're getting into. And if it's not there, please let me know. We can talk more specifics too.